American cities were built at lunch counters as much as on construction sites. Jewish delis fed immigrants who stitched garments, hauled cargo, and kept neighborhoods alive. These foods were affordable, filling, and rooted in memory. They carried Old World traditions into crowded New World streets. Every sandwich and soup served a purpose beyond taste. It sustained families, preserved identity, and created community in unfamiliar cities. Today, many of these classics are fading from menus and memory. Understanding them means understanding how cities survived hardship and growth. In this video, we uncover 10 Jewish deli classics that helped shape American cities. Pastrami on rye did not begin as a deli luxury. It began as a survival food brought by Jewish immigrants who settled into crowded American cities at the turn of the 20th century. Beef was expensive and spoiled quickly. Curing and smoking were not trends. They were necessities. Spiced meat could last longer, travel farther, and feed a family through long workweeks. In city neighborhoods packed with tenements, delicatessens became second kitchens. Pastrami simmered slowly, sliced thick, and served on dense rye bread that could hold its weight. A smear of mustard was not decoration. It cut the fat and stretched flavor. This sandwich was built for labor. It filled stomachs before factory shifts and refueled bodies afterward. As cities expanded, pastrami followed streetcar lines and garment districts. It fed tailors, dockworkers, drivers, and shopkeepers who had little time and less money. Eating it meant standing at a counter, shoulder to shoulder, speaking different languages but sharing the same hunger. The deli became a meeting place where news traveled faster than newspapers. Over time, pastrami on rye turned into an icon. Tourists lined up. Portions grew. Prices climbed. But its foundation never changed. It was a working food with a working history. When delis disappear, a piece of city memory goes with them. Pastrami on rye reminds us that American cities were built by people who ate quickly, worked hard, and relied on food that never failed them. This sandwich also carried discipline and patience. Meat was rubbed by hand, rested for days, then smoked with care. Nothing was rushed. In a fast city, the process stayed slow. That balance defined deli culture. Pastrami did not chase fashion. It answered need, routine, and endurance, qualities that allowed immigrant neighborhoods to become permanent American cities. Its legacy remains firm and unmistakable. Matzo ball soup was not created to impress anyone. It was created to sustain people during long winters, crowded living, and constant work. Long before it appeared on restaurant menus, it was a household staple rooted in Eastern European Jewish kitchens. When immigrants arrived in American cities, they brought this soup with them because it relied on simple ingredients that could be found or stretched. Flour, eggs, fat, and broth formed a meal that warmed the body and slowed hunger. In tenement apartments with limited space and little money, one pot mattered. Matzo ball soup could feed children, elders, and workers from the same stove. It required patience, not wealth. That patience carried over into city life. Delis adopted the soup because it made sense. It was inexpensive to produce, easy to serve, and deeply comforting. Bowls were poured early in the morning and late into the night. Sick customers came for it. Tired workers leaned over counters for it. Mothers trusted it. The soup earned a reputation as food that healed without claiming to. As cities grew denser, matzo ball soup became emotional infrastructure. It offered familiarity in unfamiliar streets. The soft dumplings floating in clear broth reminded people of home kitchens left behind. That memory mattered as much as nutrition. It helped immigrants endure noise, speed, and pressure without losing identity. Today, the soup is often reduced to a stereotype or novelty. But its role was serious. It stabilized families. It supported labor. It created loyalty between neighborhoods and delis. When someone ordered matzo ball soup, they were not chasing flavor trends. They were asking for reassurance. This dish helped American cities by keeping people functional and grounded. It filled gaps when wages were thin and hope felt distant. Matzo ball soup did not build skyscrapers. It built resilience. That quiet strength helped immigrant communities stay rooted long enough to shape the cities they lived in. Corned beef was never meant to be elegant. It was a preservation method turned into a city staple. Jewish immigrants adopted corned beef in America because kosher beef was available, affordable, and adaptable to curing. Salt transformed tough cuts into dependable food that could survive crowded apartments and unpredictable work schedules. In growing cities, corned beef became a deli anchor. Brined for days, boiled until tender, and sliced thick, it provided protein that lasted. Paired with rye bread, it became a complete meal that did not require plates, time, or comfort. Workers could eat it standing up, wrapped in paper, before returning to factories, shops, and warehouses. Unlike pastrami, corned beef stayed practical. It was less spiced, more restrained, and easier to produce in volume. That mattered when neighborhoods swelled with new arrivals every year. Delis needed food that could keep up with demand. Corned beef answered that need quietly and reliably. The sandwich also reflected adaptation. In Eastern Europe, cured beef was rare. In America, cattle were abundant. Immigrants adjusted without abandoning identity. Corned beef became a bridge between tradition and circumstance. It honored dietary laws while embracing a new landscape. As cities modernized, corned beef remained constant. It fed people during strikes, recessions, and long shifts. It did not disappear during hardship because it was born from it. Even today, its flavor carries the weight of endurance rather than indulgence. Corned beef helped build American cities by offering stability. It was predictable, filling, and honest. When workers relied on it, they could focus on building lives beyond survival. That reliability mattered. Cities grow when people can trust their next meal. Corned beef provided that trust, one counter at a time. Its presence turned small delis into dependable anchors within neighborhoods still finding their footing across rapidly changing cities. Knishes arrived in American cities folded, fried, and built for endurance. They began as street food in Eastern Europe, sold warm and cheap to workers with little time. Jewish immigrants carried the idea with them, and American cities gave it new purpose. Potatoes were affordable, filling, and easy to season. Wrapped in dough, they became a complete meal that could be eaten anywhere. In crowded neighborhoods, knishes filled gaps that kitchens could not. Many apartments lacked space, fuel, or time for cooking. A knish required none of that. It could be bought hot, carried in a pocket, and eaten between jobs. Street vendors and small delis sold them by the dozen, knowing demand would never slow. The knish matched city rhythm. It was portable, durable, and forgiving. The dough protected the filling. The filling stretched ingredients. Potatoes absorbed fat and salt, turning scraps into substance. This efficiency mattered during long days when wages were thin and hours were long. Knishes also reflected adaptation. In the Old World, fillings varied by region. In America, potatoes dominated because they were reliable and cheap. That shift was not loss. It was survival. Immigrants learned which foods held them upright through labor and uncertainty. As cities expanded, knishes became neighborhood markers. You knew where you were by how they tasted. Some were soft and steamed. Others were crisp and browned. Each variation told a local story shaped by ovens, customers, and habit. Today, knishes are often dismissed as simple or old-fashioned. That misses their purpose. They were built for movement, pressure, and hunger. Knishes helped American cities by feeding people who rarely sat down. They supported workers who built streets, subways, and storefronts. Quietly, reliably, they did their job. Their legacy survives wherever simple food still carries dignity, memory, and necessity today everywhere. Bagels were not designed for comfort. They were designed for control. Boiled before baking, they lasted longer, resisted spoilage, and stayed firm through long city days. Jewish immigrants brought bagels from Eastern Europe because they solved practical problems. Flour was cheap. Ovens were shared. A dense roll could survive transport, handling, and delay. In American cities, bagels found their place quickly. Bakeries worked overnight, stacking rings by the hundreds. Workers bought them in the morning, carried them to factories, offices, and job sites. A bagel did not crumble or waste. It could be eaten slowly or saved for later. That reliability mattered when meals were uncertain. Lox completed the equation. Salt-cured salmon was portable protein that paired with bread built to endure. Together, bagel and lox formed a balanced meal that required no cooking at home. Delis sliced fish thin, stretched portions, and served customers efficiently. Time was respected. Hunger was addressed. This pairing also reflected adaptation. In Europe, smoked fish varied by region. In America, salmon became accessible through trade and refrigeration. Immigrants adjusted without abandoning tradition. The ritual stayed intact even as ingredients shifted. As cities grew wealthier, bagels and lox became symbols of leisure. That image hides their origin. They were working foods first. They fueled early mornings and long commutes. They sustained people navigating crowded streets and limited wages. Bagels and lox helped build American cities by offering dependability. They fed people who kept schedules tight and expectations modest. This meal did not chase novelty. It delivered consistency. Cities thrive on routines that hold. Bagels and lox held fast. That steadiness allowed communities to plan days, save wages, raise families, and remain rooted long enough for neighborhoods to transform into lasting city institutions recognized far beyond their original blocks, and early storefronts and traditions endured. Rugelach arrived in American cities as a sweet solution to scarcity. These small pastries, rolled tight with fruit, nuts, or chocolate, traveled well and satisfied hunger without requiring a full meal. Jewish immigrants brought recipes from Eastern Europe, where resourcefulness defined every kitchen. In crowded apartments, a single batch could last for days, offering children a treat and adults a moment of comfort amid labor and responsibility. Delis and bakeries quickly recognized their value. Rugelach sold by the dozen could be wrapped, stacked, and handed to customers on the go. They were affordable, portable, and dependable. Factory workers, shopkeepers, and tailors could grab one between shifts, or bring some home to stretch over evenings when food was scarce. The pastries became part of a rhythm that balanced work, family, and survival. Rugelach also reflected adaptation. In Europe, fillings varied widely. In America, ingredients shifted to what was accessible: local fruits, nuts, and chocolate chips. The dough stayed tender, the rolls stayed small, and the sweetness remained subtle. These adjustments allowed immigrants to maintain tradition while accommodating new realities. Beyond convenience, Rugelach offered connection. Families recognized shapes and flavors from their childhood kitchens. They reminded neighbors of shared history and heritage, forming a quiet but important cultural continuity. Bakeries that mastered Rugelach built loyalty across blocks and boroughs. Even today, Rugelach carries more than flavor. It represents resilience, practicality, and identity. It was not indulgence, it was sustenance with memory baked in. Each pastry served as a small anchor in neighborhoods that were constantly changing. Rugelach helped build American cities not by constructing streets or skyscrapers, but by sustaining people who did. It gave families a sense of normalcy, a connection to the past, and a portable comfort that allowed immigrant communities to endure, thrive, and eventually shape the urban landscape for generations to come. Knockwurst and other Jewish sausages were more than flavor, they were practicality in meat form. Immigrants brought curing techniques that allowed sausages to last longer, travel farther, and feed more mouths with fewer resources. In tenement apartments and small delis, they were essential. Beef and pork were expensive and perishable, but properly spiced and smoked sausages could survive the crowded streets and unpredictable workdays of early American cities. Delis quickly adopted sausages because they were portable, easy to prepare, and satisfying. They could be boiled, grilled, or served cold on bread. Workers walking long distances or returning from factories relied on these meals to stay full and energized. In a city moving as fast as its streets, convenience mattered, but so did nutrition. Knockwurst also reflected adaptation. Eastern European recipes met local ingredients. Spices were adjusted, meats were substituted, but the technique remained. Sausages became symbols of continuity for immigrant communities while accommodating what America could provide. They were practical, edible bridges between old and new worlds. Neighborhoods identified themselves by sausage styles. Some delis became known for heavily smoked meats, others for softer, spiced varieties. Customers returned not just for taste, but for reliability and familiarity. Eating a sausage at a deli meant participating in a rhythm that defined daily life in the city. Even as skyscrapers rose and industries shifted, these sausages endured. They did not vanish because they fulfilled a real need, feeding people who built the city. Knockwurst helped American cities by keeping workers nourished and communities anchored. Its legacy is subtle but profound. It reminds us that the infrastructure of a city is not only roads and bridges, but also the meals that allowed the people building it to survive, work, and sustain traditions that shaped neighborhoods for generations. Chopped liver was never meant to be glamorous. It was a practical solution born from necessity. Jewish immigrants arriving in American cities needed to stretch every ingredient, and liver, nutrient-dense and affordable, became a staple. Combined with onions, schmaltz, and hard-boiled eggs, it transformed into a spread that could feed families quickly and efficiently. In crowded tenements, kitchens were small and fuel was limited. Chopped liver could be prepared in advance, stored, and served cold or warm. It required no elaborate cooking and offered protein in a form that children and adults alike could eat without fuss. Delis adopted it for the same reasons: easy to portion, easy to sell, and able to satisfy hunger fast. Chopped liver also reflected adaptation. Recipes shifted to local availability. Onions and eggs were plentiful. Fat from poultry was economical. Despite changes, the essence remained: a dense, savory spread that stretched ingredients while providing nourishment. In doing so, it maintained connection to home kitchens left behind in Europe, offering comfort amid unfamiliar streets. Over time, chopped liver became a marker of community. It was served at gatherings, holiday tables, and casual lunches. Ordering it at a deli meant participating in a tradition that tied generations together. It was food that carried both sustenance and memory. Today, it is easy to overlook chopped liver as simple or old-fashioned. That diminishes its significance. It fed the people who built neighborhoods, shopped local stores, and worked long hours to establish a foothold in new cities. Chopped liver helped American cities by sustaining immigrant families, preserving culinary heritage, and quietly supporting the routines that allowed communities to endure and thrive. It reminds us that survival, ingenuity, and culture can coexist on a single plate, shaping the character of a city one bite at a time. Brisket was never just a holiday centerpiece. In the early 1900s, it was a working-class necessity. Tough, affordable cuts of beef required slow cooking, long hours, and careful seasoning, but they fed families through the day and often stretched to multiple meals. Jewish immigrants brought their brisket traditions to American cities, adapting them to cramped kitchens and limited fuel, turning necessity into ritual. Delis and bakeries adopted brisket because it could be prepared in large quantities, sold by the pound, and served hot or cold. It was durable enough to survive delivery, storage, and multiple meals without losing flavor. For factory workers, tailors, and dockhands, brisket offered protein, warmth, and satisfaction after long, exhausting shifts. The preparation itself reflected patience and skill. Meat was rubbed, sometimes marinated overnight, then cooked slowly in ovens or steam kettles. Every step ensured tenderness and depth of flavor. Immigrant families relied on these practices not for luxury but for sustenance. Each bite carried the memory of home and the reassurance of nourishment in a foreign city. Brisket also anchored communities. Families would gather around deli counters to buy a portion, neighbors exchanged recipes, and holidays were celebrated with familiar flavors. These meals created continuity in rapidly changing urban environments. Today, brisket remains iconic, often romanticized, yet its origins are practical. It helped American cities thrive by feeding people who labored tirelessly and built neighborhoods from the ground up. Brisket is a reminder that behind every thriving city block were families relying on simple, hearty food to survive, connect, and endure. Its legacy is not just taste, but resilience, a culinary foundation supporting generations and shaping the character of American city life. Challah bread was more than a festive loaf. It was daily life shaped into tradition. Jewish immigrants brought it from Eastern Europe, where braided loaves symbolized continuity, faith, and sustenance. In American cities, challah adapted to crowded apartments, shared ovens, and busy schedules, becoming both a practical food and a cultural anchor. Bakeries in immigrant neighborhoods quickly recognized its value. Braided loaves could feed families for days, toast well, and travel easily. They were rich enough to satisfy hunger yet simple enough to make regularly. Workers and children alike relied on slices as breakfast, lunch, or snack, stretching limited ingredients while maintaining a connection to home. Challah also carried ritual significance. Its presence on Shabbat or holidays offered comfort and stability in unfamiliar surroundings. While city streets bustled with noise, commerce, and uncertainty, a loaf of challah reminded families of continuity, memory, and shared identity. Its braided form symbolized unity, binding people through flavor, texture, and tradition. In delis and bakeries, challah became both nourishment and symbol. Customers returned weekly not just for taste, but for reliability, ritual, and community. It reinforced connections among neighbors, friends, and extended families, quietly supporting the social fabric of growing urban neighborhoods. Today, challah is often seen as a celebratory food, yet its origins are deeply practical. It helped American cities thrive by sustaining immigrant families, preserving cultural identity, and providing consistent nutrition. Every loaf contributed to resilience, stability, and routine, enabling communities to endure hardship, raise children, and maintain heritage. Challah's legacy is clear. It nourished bodies, minds, and hearts, shaping American cities from the inside out through bread, tradition, and perseverance.